Welcome, Tom. It's fabulous to have you here. And I know it's very early in your part of the world, 8 o'clock there, 4 o'clock here in the UK. And welcome to All Things Audacious.
Thank you. It's such an honor to be here. It's great to see you again.
Thank you. And I know we're celebrating a lot of things, but before we go into that, and you and I will talk about having no agenda, which is always the intention of this audacious conversation. So for me is, when I set it all out was to redefine Audacity. That was number one. And number two was to have audacious conversations with audacious people who inspire me. So you're one of them. And I'd love for you to, well, why don't you just introduce yourself with something audacious and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, great. I think the most audacious thing that I could say to introduce myself is I don't care about your success. And not you, Alina, but yes, you, but I mean, the great you. I don't care about my clients' success. They often regularly achieve a lot of success, but what I care about is them remembering who they are. And what I've seen is so much success is built on top of so much pain. And leaders everywhere are looking for more tactics and strategies and all of this stuff. And what I do is I take them into the woods and into the mountains and help them forget all of that stuff. Forget that they're a CEO, forget that they're a mother, forget that they're a, whatever, a software engineer, whatever it is. Because it's in that quietness and that stillness that real innovation happens, that real remembering happens. Yeah, it's always an interesting reaction when I tell people I don't care about your success, and they're like, "But wait, what? That's why I'm here." It's like, no, it's not.
I love
You're here because for something in you wants to remember who you actually are underneath all the labels and underneath all the masks that you wear on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, no, I love that. And actually, I think that's probably one of the things that you and I have in common. You obviously taking the people into the mountains, and I love to explore the audaciousness of that and how you do it. I do the same, the retreats in the Transylvanian mountains. You're doing it in sort of Vancouver Island. And your sense of adventure, I think that's one of the things that I know of you, that you value adventure, leadership. And I think it's the spiritual practice. And I'm sort of curious how you intertwine those three, and how do they come about in your life and your practice?
Yeah, so over the years, I've developed a theory that I call adventure consciousness, which is exactly that. Adventure, leadership, and soul are three strands of the same rope, and you can't pull them apart, and you can't develop one without developing the other. And if one area is weak, it's going to hold the others back. And what I mean by they're all three strands of the same rope is, leadership is an adventure. There's no map. You're in uncharted territory. If you're actually a leader, right? If you have a map, you're not a leader, you're a manager. And there's nothing wrong with that. Right? But leading is about forging a new path, right? Breaking a new trail, right? These are all adventure terms. It's also a spiritual path, because leadership will reveal your triggers, your wounds, your beliefs, your strengths. And to me, that's the spiritual journey, right? Is a journey of self-knowledge, self-understanding, self-awareness. And it works the other way around, right? Adventure requires leadership. It requires you to go over the next hill, and it's also very spiritual, right? If you look at the Bible, everything significant, not everything, most things significant happened on some form of adventure, right? The 10 Commandments, Mount Sinai, the parting of the Red Sea, the burning bush, 40 days in the desert, like the feeding of the 5,000. It's just almost everything significant happened up a mountain. And these are the teachings that have informed certainly the whole Christian. I don't subscribe to being a Christian, but it's the same in all, right? A lot of the Hindu myths and gods, they happen, on mountains. And so these three things, adventure and spirituality or soul and leadership, they all weave together. And for me, the mountains are the only place that, for me, where I connect into something and something flows through me and it creates magic.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that distinction for you, because it's, the mountains for you, because that is your type of adventure that you love most. And it's because I was thinking about, I'm sure there are other people who will want to have adventure at sea. So it doesn't have to be, and although you could also have mountains around the sea, but yeah, it's a great distinction, because we all have our own flavor of adventure or flavor of audaciousness.
And here's the thing, a relationship is an adventure, right? Your business is an adventure. Going to Costco, right, can be an adventure if you choose to look at it that way. And again, that's one of the things, like, whether it's the mountain or whether it's sailing or whether it's whatever, it teaches you to look at everything through a different lens and to really, appreciate what's in front of you. And one of the reasons why it's so powerful is we bring that back into our business, and we bring that back into our relationship, and we bring that back into our parenting, and we bring that back into every area of our life. And when we see life as an adventure, and again, this is just my theory, right? Part of adventure is intentionally choosing discomfort. Because again, if it's not uncomfortable, then it's not really an adventure. It's just a kind of, I don't know, a walk in the woods or whatever, a nice jolly on a sailboat. Whereas it becomes an adventure when there's danger, when there's a risk of something going wrong, when you're cold and you're tired and you're exhausted, and that's when the kind of the lid comes off and you access something different. And guess what? In relationship, there are uncomfortable moments. There are times when you want to run away. In leadership, there's times you want to just jack it all in, right? Because it gets too big and you don't know where you're going and everyone's looking for answers and you're like, When we can see these moments as adventure, then we can find the gold in them. And it, I'm thinking of the times I've been on some kind of mountain ridge and the wind is blasting me in the face, and it's like, what the hell am I doing here? Like, no human should be here. But in those moments, I feel more alive than ever. And what I've found for a lot of my clients is that they take that sense of aliveness back into the challenges in their life. And it gives them something different to face them with, like new tools, new skills to face those challenges with. And actually, instead of just feeling the stress of the situation, they feel the aliveness of it.
I love that. And actually, for what's coming up for me, Tom, because your life is adventure. That's sort of for you, adventure is the big thing. And I remember having a conversation with Rich Litvin, who you and I know as being part of his community. For him, adventure is also a huge value. For me, adventure didn't resonate as much. I use the word experimentation, which is my flavor of it. So I see life as an experiment. And that's that reframing, is that I'm going to try and I'm going to experiment. And if it works, great. And if it doesn't, I'll move on to the next experiment. It is a different nuance to it. And it's just the one that works for me. And so we all have, I'm just acknowledging that it's how we look at it. As you said, the choice of how do I choose to, even if I go to Costco, as you said, as climbing Kilimanjaro, it's an adventure. or for me, is like, I am going to experiment with this thing. And I'd love for you to tell a little bit more about your story, because I find there is so much audacity, audaciousness in your story. And I wrote a few of those things down, and you could choose, for you. I know of you that you're sort of globetrotter, but you sailed in the Indian Ocean, talking about also the ocean, not just the mountains. You climbed the Himalayas, you trekked the Amazon rainforest. And I mean, you went into the Guinness World Record for climbing the height of Everest in 2011, and that was an artificial wall. It's like, wow. I mean, I can think of all of that as audacious things adventures rather, that you pursued. So where does your heart go? Which one shall we explore a bit more?
Well, people love to hear about the world record, because it's kind of a wacky thing, and it is, it's something that I'm really proud of. And it fits the subject of this, because it was audacious in so many ways. It had never been done before. So if I wind back a little bit, when I was at school, we had an outdoor activities department, and I didn't have a very good time at school. I went to a very prestigious boarding school, and and there's some well documented effects of boarding school that are coming out now. And my safe haven in school, but also before that, was always adventure. That's been a part of I climbed out of my cot before I could walk. And when I was a young kid, my friends always said if they ever needed to find me, they just needed to look at the top of the tallest tree, and there I'd be. So, so outdoor activities, whitewater kayaking, mountain biking, rock climbing, hiking, all of those kind of things. I was very fortunate that A, the school had all the kit, and B, we had to choose between CCF, Combined Cadet Forces, or outdoor activities. And so every Wednesday we had the opportunity to go kayaking or biking or whatever. And while I was at the school, we had two heads of OA, and one was a guy called Rupert Rosedale, who probably is one of the men, not probably, he's one of the men who has had the most impact on my life. And he died in an avalanche in 2009 or 10, I can't remember the exact date. And so this whole thing was kind of a tribute to him. And I don't know where it came from. And I think that's a really important part of being an audacious leader, is we have these intuitions and we have to follow them. And it's very easy to not follow them because they don't make sense. Totally. And so somewhere out of the blue, this idea came to climb the height of Everest on a regular climbing wall, just kind of up and down. And as I looked into it, I saw no one had done it before. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. People have done most things. It had been done in a group, but not ever by an individual. And so I convinced a friend of mine from work to do it together. I was working in film at the time. And we set it up as that we would race against each other. And it was to me, it was a very interesting experiment, to use your language, because he was like fit. He was like a marathon runner, and I was not, and I've never been a runner. And so, but I had much more climbing experience than him. So it was like, is this a fitness challenge or is this a strength challenge? We don't know. And it became very obvious pretty quickly that it was a strength challenge and not a fitness challenge. And the race element of it became clear that I was going to win, not just because I my forearms were stronger than his. But the long and short of it is we climbed 1,210 times up an 8-meter wall overnight on March the 10th, 2011. And it took 13 and a half hours. The worst part about it was we miscalculated the height of the wall. So we thought it was 8 meters, which meant 1,106 climbs. And I finished, and it was the middle of the night because we did it way faster than we anticipated. And we had this whole plan that people would arrive at it was at the outdoor leisure show, British leisure show or something like that. People would arrive in the morning and they'd see and they'd be like, oh my God, they've been climbing all night. What the hell? And they'd throw a load of money in the bucket for the donations to charity. But we finished it at like 1 a.m. But so I finished and like my arms were destroyed and I put ice on them and I got in the car and I like went to sleep, and then I got a knock on the window and it was my brother saying, by the way, the wall's not 8 meters, it's 24 feet. So each climb was 70 centimeters shorter than I thought. So after an hour and a half of resting, I had to like get back on the wall and do another 106 climbs. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever done because my hands were like T-Rex. I was like climbing like this. But yeah, I was in in fact, I can see the book over there on the shelf opposite me. I was in the Guinness World Records book. And like any journey of any significance, it didn't go the way that anyone planned. Or it would be, we'd train for 4 to 6 months, do the climb and be done with it. It took 2 years of my life. Because one of us would get injured and then the other one would get injured. And then we had the venue that we were going to do it, decided they didn't want to host it anymore. And then we couldn't find another venue. And then stuff just went wrong all the time. And I was like, my training was like 4 hours on the rowing machine, like multiple hours, many times a week at the gym while working full time and all this stuff. And one of the things that it taught me is you have something big like that. And actually I wrote an article about it recently I did a 30-day cold plunge challenge here in Vancouver. And the article I wrote was Freedom Through Structure. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of, leaders, a lot of us have ADHD and other neurodivergences. And we're like, we want to do all the things and we don't want to be tied down. And, and I am the worst at that. I'm so guilty of not wanting to kind of restrict my options. But what I found through that climbing experience and through the cold plunge, and then the next year I did 500 meters of elevation hiking every day for the month of and it's extraordinary how much time these things open up. You think, and every time I go into one of these challenges, I'm like, how am I going to fit it in? I've got so much to do. My life is so busy. How am I going to find an hour, 2, 3, 4, 5 hours every day, whatever it is? But having that one thing to put your attention on and put your focus on, somehow it just clarifies, everything else just falls into place. I don't know if you've had that experience. But yeah, I found, and meditation is the same. Everyone talks about they don't have time to meditate, which I kind of always laugh at, because you literally create time. You
create. Yeah. It's about creation. I agree. I mean, it's the same when people come to me to, coaching and said, there is no opportunity, Alina, there is no opportunity. And I said, there isn't an opportunity. You just have to create the opportunity. There's no such thing. And it's the same as the time. But what's, as you were telling, which is an extraordinary story, by the way, Tom. I mean, that is, and when you just said it took 2 years, it's like, what? All of this sort of the the behind the closed doors, and you were in filmmaking, and you know what, behind all of the cameras, all of the story that sort of unravels. And yes, it's when this, because I'm actually much more of a structured person, and in my team we play with the different strengths and edges, as I call them. And I never appreciated this as a structured person. I used to call myself totally uncreative, because I thought a structured person cannot be creative, and that's not true. That's a myth that I had to bust. But it is, we're starting to, we go back to where you started with, I don't care about your success, Alina. And it is that concept that I also use in my book, which is courage, care, non-conformity. When you care so much about that mission, in your case, or, it took you 2 years, or you care about a person, talking about relationships, you care about, something, then you don't care about either what other people think or how much time is going to take you, or, it's just a beautiful concept to consider, the playing with caring until you don't care.
Well, and the other C to add into that is commitment.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I've never been more committed to anything, I don't think, in my life. In the it's like 14 years. Yeah, 14 years ago I did that. And I still don't think I've ever been as committed as I was to that. Right? And when you're that committed, and I can't remember who told this to me, but I love it. It's like, commitment is like pregnancy. I don't know if you've heard that. You either are or you're not.
That's beautiful.
Right? No one is a little bit pregnant.
Yes.
No one is pregnant as long as nothing else comes up. Right? And this is a really important message, I think, for a lot of leaders who are watching, is like, what are you saying you're committed to when you're actually just participating in when it's convenient?
And that's a big thing, the commitment, actually, because, you were talking, my business partner, Tatiana, and I were talking about that this morning. So for me personally, commitment is one of the biggest values. And even my website says, how committed are you? So I always test for commitment. And, that sort of inner commitment, almost sometimes to the extreme, because, and this is something I'm still working on. A promise is a promise. And there is some rigidity and inflexibility. So I've learned that sometimes things do, life happens, and you might not be able to keep up that commitment. But generally speaking, commitment is a big C for me in everything I do.
And it's like, what are you, like, if life comes up and you can't hold that commitment, well, it's actually just because you're more committed to whatever has come up, right? And for a lot of us, what comes up is, a client needs my attention. What comes up is, the roof needs fixing, or right. It's like some circumstance shows up, and often the place where we put that commitment down is right here. A lot of leaders, and especially a lot of people who are in your world, right, are going to be servant leaders. They're going to be people who care about that. They're leading from the heart because they want to make the world a better place. And I see it all the time. I'm sure you do. Is people are burnt out. They're run ragged. They're they have no ability to say no. I think that's one of the things that I probably
2 hands up for me. That is my biggest issue.
Right. And I'm the same. And it's the biggest thing that I work with my clients on is saying no and being committed first and foremost to my health and my aliveness, because how can I lead if I'm not? And if Rich Litvin was one of the people. He shared his diving distinction, where you have your spare oxygen mask, and if I'm just giving the oxygen to you the whole time, well, then I'm going to drown.
And I want to acknowledge, actually, Tom, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's just something that, we've got Catherine on, and then she is saying, courage is creating conflict so people change. And that's probably the most difficult part as leaders. You are absolutely right, is being okay with that. And I know I'm speaking from my own experience, still saying no, it's something that I have had to learn, and I'm still learning. And I would love to, and I'm aware that we've only got sort of 5 minutes. I don't want to miss out the opportunity to find out a bit more about your own retreat in May. I think it's mid-May, because we just found out as we came, just before we came live, that you and I have got retreats exactly in the same week in 2 different parts of the world. So just give me the sort of the exciting adventure that's going to happen during your retreat.
Yeah, I'm super excited, and thanks for asking. So usually what I do is from a leadership perspective, and it's like 5 days of like adventure, right? And every day is a different leader in the group, and we're out in the wild and we're moving. But it's a very leadership focused. This is different. This is my first time collaborating with others. So there's 3 of us that are going to lead it. And it's kind of a mini vision fast. So it's drawing very heavily on vision fasting principles, but 5 days in a wilderness camp. And it's called The Question. And, it's basically a 5-day exploration of the question that you've been asking yourself your whole life. And underneath that is the question, I'm going to say question a lot, the question of what question is your life the answer to? And again, it's a flip of the script, right? We're so conditioned to look for answers. We're so conditioned to know and control and should I go left or should I go right? But from a soul perspective, what our soul desires is mystery. It actually wants more questions, not less. Because when we answer a question, there's no more possibility. Right? What color do you want your wall? Blue. Now the wall is blue, and it's blue until we ask the question, do I want to change the color of the wall, right? And you know this, underneath every question is actually a more powerful question.
Sure.
So this is 5 days with 2 other amazing facilitators, Tina Overbury and Adam Tutor. And it's going to bring together expressive arts, adventure, yogic practices, nature immersion, and it's all centered around what is your question.
I love that. Yes, I mean, you say it is. It's just wonderful. I mean, we had a question from Catherine on what is the gender and the age mix for your retreat?
There is no restriction. I mean, it's adults. But
and it's in Vancouver, is that right? Or Vancouver Island?
Yeah, so it's on Bowen Island, which is like a tiny island just off a very short ferry ride from Vancouver.
And how can people get in touch with you, Tom, if they want to find out anything more about that?
If they want to find out specifically about that retreat, it's altitudeevolution.com/question. My website, altitudeevolution.com /question. Or just comment on this video. And
comment on it. Let's make it simple.
I'll get in touch. Yeah.
Comment on here, and it's sort of simple. And do you have, I'm really curious. I mean, you and I can talk offline on that, because we, for me, the retreat in Transylvania, this is the 5th year. So, listening to you as the first time of this particular model, for us, the model, we've refined it and evolved it. And, we're taking 14 leaders from Europe generally, although we had someone who sort of came a few years ago from across the pond in the US. But it's a similar but different. 4 days, we then have another 3 days are more spiritual and soul, but Dracula Castle, bears, rivers, mountains, fires, all of that for leaders. So very exciting.
Yeah, and it's so powerful to get away from, and even the word retreat, right? Humans have been retreating forever, long before we had businesses, right? We go, and it's a rite of passage. We literally retreat from the village. We retreat from our regular life to discover our questions. And yeah, I think it's so cool that we're both doing something on the exact same weekend, right? May 15 to 19. Yeah, we don't have any bears. It's weirdly, we're in BC. There's no bears on that particular island.
Yeah, well, Romania has got probably the biggest population of brown bears I found. But yeah, Catherine, if you still sort of, here, just ask those questions in the in the comments here, and then Tom, I'm sure, will come back to you, or you two can connect. And the same for us. I mean, this is to be continued. I just sort of feel we only scratched the surface, Tom, in terms of the adventures and the leadership and the soul creations. But for me, I think this is going to be on YouTube for everybody who's here or who will watch us later under Audacious Alina, and then we can sort of get in touch. The other thing is sort of, for me, I've got this Audacious Leadership newsletter that I have committed. Talking about commitment, I have committed to it 3 years ago, and I'm going into my 4th. And it's been tough at times to keep that commitment every month, but I have stuck with it. So if anybody wants to, they can subscribe. And it's been such a pleasure to have you here, Tom. So
fun. Yeah, and so great to reconnect with you after however long it's been. I'm excited for, if anyone's watching who's like on the fence about going to spend time with Alina in the mountains in Transylvania, just do it. Just get in touch and do it, because she's an amazing person, and I know without a shadow of a doubt that it will change your life forever.
No, thank you. Mirroring back to you. Same. I said it's completely 2 different parts of the world, so I'm sure there is plenty of space for they can do both adventure this year because they're in the same week, but at different times of their lives. And congratulations to you. And I know you've got the new member of the family coming. Arriving in the autumn, so we'll connect before that, hopefully. And thank you, and we'll see you soon. And thank you for anybody who's been with us now and later.
Yeah, thank you so much. I hope this has been a valuable conversation for anyone watching.
I'm sure it has.
Great honor to be here.
And for us, I mean, it's been for us.
So fun.
That's what matters. Yeah. Thank you.